Hello and welcome to the Nintendo Power Checklist. Well, I should say Dr. Gackman's Nintendo Power Checklist, because these are my actual volumes of the magazine. But we are here for volume 116 through volume 127. That's the entire year of 1999. So welcome. The first volume, 116. January 1999 is Castlevania, or Castlevania 64 as it's often referred to. The centerfold for this volume, you can see this right here, that's Psygnosis, a well-known, seemingly since these days and then going forward, a PlayStation developer. But, you know, they did things for other systems too, so this game is ODT. Looking back at it now, I never did play this, but I probably should play it. Maybe it's not any good, but I don't know. I remember the label for the cartridge when I get it at work, you know, it's pretty plain, just says ODT, and it's like, if it's the one that I'm thinking it is. I don't know. Just looking through this as I was taking these pictures, I was like, I never did give ODT a chance. There's also Buck Bumble down there, but that was a part of the magazine, not the actual centerfold. On the back of the centerfold here is Turok 2 maps and tips. This came with this volume. It was a, I don't think it was a tear out, because it doesn't look like it has any perforation on the edges here. But this was a poster calendar for 1999 of Pokemon. Wow, I love this original artwork on here. This is really neat. But yeah, that's the, I guess, January bonus. You noticed in the last video covering 1998, they were going away from the naming of the Nintendo Power Super Power Club, obviously. Now they just call it subscriber bonus. So if you were a subscriber, you got extra stuff that the newsstand people did not get. And this is, I believe, I don't think this was in the newsstand one, but I could be wrong. I do know that this, now I'm remembering, this is not a tear out one, no perforation, because the actual magazine, this one came in a bag because it came with another bonus, which you'll see here in a moment. Now this was, was this tear out? This was tear out. Like the other previous year, they had volume 1 through 5 of Pokemon Power. Now, I told you in the last video that there was no more Pokemon Powers. I was wrong. They did one more, I guess, to even it out and make a half year, make it 6 full volumes of this. And then later in the year, you'll see that they do something else instead. But this was a tear out. Looks like Gary and Mewtwo. This was a tear out mini magazine. And I love how it says collector series when this is the only way they came. So it wasn't like, I mean, is it a collector's item? Yes, but is it like, is there a different series that's not collectors? No, because this was the only way that you could get it. It's kind of funny. But yes, see, there's my address right there. Well, at least when I subscribed anyway. This was the subscriber bonus. Notice that they don't use the nomenclature of Super Power Supplies, or should say Super Power Club anymore. But this was top tips for 1998. This was on the outer bag of the volume. You know, this one came in a bag because it had the poster, it had this, and it had the magazine. So these were Nintendo 64 codes and tips from 1998. Next volume, this is February 1999, which is volume 117, Mario Party. Now, sometimes people get confused by this. This is the first Mario Party, but confusingly, they put on here the dice that you start off the board game with, and it says 3 really big. Of course, there's also a 10 and a 7 on there, but some people would get confused. There were 3 Mario Parties on Nintendo 64, 1, 2, 3. But, you know, some people would look and see the cover or the sticker, the label on the cartridge, or maybe even the box art, and go, oh, this is Mario Party 3. No, this is Mario Party 1. It just has a big 3 dice. I don't know if they knew that they were going to end up making more than 10 games in the series, including 3 in just one generation, the first generation that they started, but there you go. Rampage 2 Universal Tour with new monsters. This is the centerfold. On the back of the centerfold is the Majora's Mask, The Legend of Zelda. These are, it's called the trading game. I said trading game tips as I'm writing out the text version of the checklist here on my blogger. Next volume is March 1999, volume 118, Tonic Trouble's on the cover. And the centerfold is Rayman 2, The Great Escape. On the back of the centerfold is, let's see what this is, Castlevania 64 maps and tips. So here's some maps for Castlevania 64, or Castlevania, the first one on Nintendo 64. There's Clockwork and the monsters and stuff that you gotta fight. There's Drek's coffin. Anyways, that was on the back of that centerfold. There was another centerfold, although it wasn't in the center of the magazine, but it was bound to the center of the binding. This was not a tear-out poster. It was a fold-out centerfold of Vigilante 8 from Activision. I guess they thought that they had to really do this, and this is the other side of that. There you go. What was on the now playing? Okay, Vigilante 8. Wouldn't you know? And then before they start adding the next Pokemon extra, they had this. This is the Pokemon trading card game was starting to, I mean, you had the games, the video games, you had the toys, you had the, you know, even KFC in the beginning, Burger King, later on McDonald's would have Happy Meal toys, but they also had other toys out there, collectibles, Nintendo Power stuff, of course. But the trading card game, they even made a video for this, expressing the anime, the toys, the collectibles, the games, and the trading card game, which was a whole other thing. This is Wizards of the Coast. In the beginning, I don't believe Wizards of the Coast is involved with the trading card game now. I think it's all handled by the Pokemon Company. But at this time, Pokemon was completely, there was no Pokemon Company. There was just, you know, it was owned by Nintendo. And Pokemon is a huge phenomenon even still today. But this was the early beginnings, and they gave you this. It's not foil or special or rare or anything, but this is the Charmeleon card for you. I still have mine still stuck to it. It's kind of greasy with the glue. I don't know if you can see any of the grease marks because, you know, the glue, it's not wet, but, you know, it's obviously jelly, like a gel to hold it in place. So that does dry out and bleed through and blah, blah, blah. But I like that it's still attached. They did this with VHS. They did this with collectibles, magazines, toys. It came with the cards, as well as, you know, the card packs that you would buy individually. But this also explains the trading card game, because they actually have this that comes with the magazine as well. This was, I don't think this was a tear out. so you don't have to worry about perforations or ripping it up. But it's the starters. It's and Pikachu, of course, because he was starting to become popular because of the anime. And there you go. Subscriber bonus for Nintendo Power Magazine, the trading card game of Pokemon. This is a play mat for you. Next volume, which is April 1999, volume 119, is Beetle Adventure Racing on the cover. You'll also notice on the cover, this was, wow, we didn't even see this coming from, videos and interviews and stuff about the early days of Smash Brothers. This was not even like a big thing. It was a big thing as soon as it came out. The commercial was great for it, but it came out of nowhere. And I think originally they planned other characters, but then they, it was, I believe it was Hal did development for it, which is before Iwata became president of Nintendo. I mean, he worked on this game, so did Sakurai, who's still working on this game, even though he's not with HAL, even though he's not with Nintendo. He's, part of his own development group. Sora Limited, I believe, is the name of it these days. But who knew that this was going to be such a phenomenon? And it was the only way to get Samus on Nintendo 64. I had wanted and hoped for a new Metroid on Nintendo 64. And then you got the cover there, Beetle Adventure Racing, which Nintendo 64 was a racing, not just because of the 4-player aspect, not just because Mario Kart was such a huge phenomenon on 64, but just in general, the Nintendo 64 had a lot of racing games. That might have come over for those two reasons that I just listed, but there was just a lot of them. You got the Cruisin' series started with the Ultra 64 arcade system, and which was supposedly, well, not supposedly, but it was based off of Nintendo 64 hardware, so that they could port the games from the the arcade over to home. And it was just, man, Nintendo 64 is definitely a racing platform. So, Force Gemini is the centerfold there. They have such creepy eyes. I don't know what Rare was going for with this, but they're pretty creepy. I love this game, and I like the art style. It's crazy. You could tell that there was maybe a little bit of cartoony and a little bit of Aniverse type things from Star Fox from the beginning of Jet Force Gemini. Like Rare wanted to work on Star Fox or wanted to work on a game like Star Fox. You found out that the same teams and the same people that worked on Jet Force Gemini would go on to do Dinosaur Planet, which then later became a Star Fox game. But just a cool little bit of a history there, really neat. On the back of the centerfold is ODT, and this is another reason why I want to try that game out from Psygnosis on Nintendo 64. These are some maps and tips for ODT. Look at this tooth guy right here. Doesn't that look kind of familiar? Anyways. And this, I believe, is the only one for this year, and I don't know if this is the end of the Superpower Supplies catalog, but there's that. I don't remember many more Superpower Supplies catalog items. I mentioned in the last video they showed the Mario characters as these beanies for 1998. Now they got Peach or Princess there. And you got Bowser here. I don't know if this was nearing towards the end of the Superpower Supplies catalog. In my notes and everything, I do not remember seeing any more of these catalogs. So this might be the last one. Now we're on to volume 120, which is from May 1999, and Star Wars craze was hitting. They even had a Pod Racer Nintendo 64, the box, and it came with the game, Episode 1 Racer. Episode 1 Racer was ported to other systems, though, but Nintendo 64, I think, was the lead platform for it, but I think it was on Dreamcast later on, and it was on maybe PlayStation. I can't remember. Anyways, that would be a two-player, dumbed down version. And here we are with Racers again on Nintendo 64. This is Anakin's pod, but you'll notice there's multiple covers, and I have all of the covers. So this is somebody else's I believe this is Sebulba, or I know this is Sebulba. I believe this was the hardest one to find of the four. There's 4 covers. Now the 2 backgrounds go together on these 2, and the 2 backgrounds go together on these 2. Now this one is the 3rd cover, which is, I gotta look up the name here again real quick, Mars Guo. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Mars Guo. And then Team 2 Pagalis. Team 2. So these were all different pod racers, and you'll see the other pods here in the backgrounds of these. But as I was saying, when you piece them together, of course it's not a 4-cover mural, it's just 2 covers that have the 4 pod racers, the 2 main ones on the cover, and then a secondary one here and here, as you can see. And then the cover goes into the background there. You got the big arching or whatever rock formation, and then there's just a blue sky on the second one. And same thing down here too. So you can see there's another secondary pod racer. This one also has writing on it, I'm sorry to say. Not a perfect cover, but I have all 4 covers. And again, this background blends with that. And then there's another pod in the background. So they make up basically 2 of the same kind of background posters, or not posters, but mural, I guess. And it has all 4, 2 on top being Anakin and Sebulba, the big deals, and then the other 2 pod racers there. So Harrier 2001. Now, we're heading towards the years of 2000, so so you'll see a lot of this in pop culture at the time. I mean, 2000 was a big deal. Y2K, all that crap, and Star Wars is a big deal. So I said before that there was a Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 itself was just a regular 64, but it came packed in with Episode 1 Racer, and the box was all black and had artwork from the movie. I mean, it was a phenomenon. So here you go. You got, I believe this is from Resident Evil here. This was the early word that Resident Evil was a big, huge PlayStation franchise was headed to Nintendo 64. I believe this is the first remarks of that at E3 of that year. So on the back of that centerfold is Shadowgate 64. I got to mention StarCraft, Shadowgate, all of those kind of games. They had 64 versions. 64 had like a lot of like strategy games, a lot of games that were normally considered PC games, first-person shooters, Star Wars type games. It was a pretty good platform for that. So here's the some maps and tips there. Now the next volume is Pokemon Snap on the cover, and there you go. You got this is, what is this, June? So this was around E3 time. They even had previews before then of E3. June 1999. And then the centerfold is Army Men Sarge's Heroes. And there's another 3DO game that's just, talked about 3DO in the last video. So There's two parts to this. This is a part one, and there's a part two. On the back of the centerfold, they had, this is the semi-pro pod racing circuit for episode 1 racer. There you go. Some tracks there and some tips. And then again, continuing the craze of episode 1 mania, there was a pod racer poster. Now this one was one that you had to tear out, and I meant to take a picture of this before because I still had it attached. I knew what the poster looked like. I didn't need to detach it, but I wanted to for this video, and I detached it, but I didn't take a picture of it being virgin unripped. But there it is, as it wouldn't be in the magazine. And then when you unfold it, after you tear it out, there's Anakin's mug right there, and Sebulba. That was it. That was a big deal back then. I'm telling you. Next volume, which is, I talked about June, I believe this is July then. This is World Driver Championship on the cover. A lot of games try to take that cruising aspect and the arcadey type thing, but then there was also sim type games like Ridge Racer and, well, I mean, I guess you can't call Ridge Racer, it was very arcadey, but it was more, they tried to make the cars look more realistic. And then you had futuristic ones like F-Zero influence, of course, but then there was, I think it was Extreme G and Extreme G XG2. Anyways, here it is, another nasty, blatant. I can't even rip this sticker off without ruining the cover. But there's that. I think this was meant to be a GoldenEye 64 symbol right here, but you can't really even tell. But anyways, there's that. A lot of these last issue either covers or inserts or stickers, or they printed it on the magazine sometimes, had a game theme to them, of course. Here is Stone Cold Steve Kickass and Mankind as Mick Foley as Mankind, getting smacked down here at WWF Attitude as the centerfold. Wrestling games, another big thing on Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 had so many things lacking, right? Role-playing games, a lot of Japanese games, but there was other games that it just got too many of. I mean, you can't have too many of a good game, too many of anything really. Even shovelware is, as long as you got more games. Of course, PlayStation greatly performed as far as like quantity of games than Nintendo 64 did. And of course, quantity of shovelware as well. But that's my point. You know, the more games that you get, whether it's shovelware or not, you know, the better for selection. Sometimes some people's shovelware is another person's, you know, gold. But here's the part 2 of the Pod Racing Invitational on the back of the centerfold. Next volume is August 1999, volume 123, Hybrid Heaven. This is another game that I've always looked at, but I never played. I remember seeing footage of it or whatever. I got an EverDrive 64, so I should really play it one of these days, if I could ever have the time. But yeah, there's that Hybrid Heaven from Konami. The centerfold in this one is Supercross 2000. I don't really like EA games, but there's that. And they tried to, like, they used to have Epic Center during the Super Nintendo days, and Super Nintendo was very well known for Japanese and role-playing games and JRPGs and stuff, but not the 64. However, because of Pokemon, you know, that was kind of, I guess, meant to fill the void of JRPGs for some people, or at least Nintendo thought so, or Nintendo Power Magazine thought so. And they were going to replace Epic Center, the center of the magazine, you know, for epic role-playing games, with Poke Center or Pokemon Center. They started to get in the groove of trying to put that in the center of the magazine with the center, or right after the centerfold, but that's just a, you know, a little collector's note. Here's World Driver Championship. These are some, let me see, what can you even call those? Cups and tactics. So there's cups and they say strategies and tactics and stuff. So, and then here, like I was talking about, here's Poke Center. Although this wasn't after the center folder in the center of the magazine, they just put it there. And it's funny, later on, they would start to call their Pokemon specific stores Poke Centers. But there you go. This is what started the new thing. They were just basically, instead of making comics or whole books, now these were attached. I guess you could rip these out, but you could still read them from within the magazine, so I kept them in. Because unlike the Pokemon Power magazines, the mini magazines that were in there, the binding was on the outside, and then they were tear off on the inside. So you had to, in order to read them, see them, open them up, you had to get them out of the Nintendo Power magazine with a perforated. But I think, they just glued this into the binding here, and it was actually episodes from the anime series. So there you go, episode 7. Now I don't know if it was because it came halfway through a normal season for Saturday morning cartoons or whatever, or the network that it was on in certain areas only had the first 6 episodes translated, because I believe it was 4 kids that started doing the translations of the Pokemon anime, Japanimation at first. But there you go. So they started, I guess this was their preliminary way of doing English translations or whatever, by turning it into a comic book for Nintendo Power magazine. So, and then behind that is Pokemon Snap had a sticker album. It's perforated. I guess you could rip it out, but I never did. And I feel like in any opportunity for collecting purposes, I don't want to take anything out of the magazine unless the only way to view it or to, show it to you guys or whatever is to rip it out. And I did that a lot this year. I did have to rip some of these things out, but it was just you can see this is the back of the magazine here, or back of the comic. Daggone. The comic for Pokemon here, and then the next thing that they glued in there was the sticker album. And there's some art there, fan art or whatever, Poke-Chat. Anyways, so yeah, this is the beginning of the Poke Center and the making the anime into a comic book, then put it into the Power magazine, glued to the center, so you don't want to really rip those out. This again could probably be ripped out. It's perforated, but I never did, because you can view it. And all it is just some places to put your stickers from the Blockbuster Video Pokemon Snap machines that printed out the little stickers for you. So, next volume. Look at these creepy eyes. Like I said, even the dog. Force Gemini. Now, something to note about this: the font here is a silver foil font. Make that note on my blogger too for the text checklist. 40 Winks never actually came out. This is the centerfold for this. It did come out for PlayStation, I believe, back in that day, but Nintendo 64, no. Now, however, there has been, I don't know if it was a crowd-funded thing or a GoFundMe thing or a whatever they call that these days. I can't remember the name. Whatever. I do believe that they have physically made a playable cartridges for this game finally. Now, if you have an EverDrive 64, you could always download a ROM of the game, because the game, I guess, was pretty much complete, but I guess it just didn't make financial sense for the company. It was GT Interactive to release the game physically, but here it is being advertised like it was. And then there's the center there for Pokemon again. Back to Pokemon again. On the back of that volume is, let me see here. This is Hybrid Heaven. These are areas, as I put in my notes here. And then near towards the end of the magazine, you got the, they didn't call it Poke Center here, but it's basically the Poke Center section of the magazine. And this is episode 8 of the comic and anime, I guess you could say. And then this is a trading card game card of quote-unquote E3 Pikachu. Now this is Fat Pikachu. It's some original art. And it's got a gold foil, though, right? If you can see it. Where? Now I can't even find it. Yeah, here it is. The gold foil right there, it says E3. Which is funny, they have E-3 capitalized here. The actual E3 is E lowercase and then a cubed symbol. At least back then that's the way it was. But then, you know, whatever. Goofiness. But yeah, this was, I guess this was the card that they were giving out at E3, but they also gave it out to people who were subscribers to Nintendo Power Magazine. I don't believe this was in the newsstand one, but yeah, it says special bonus for subscribers. I need to write that in my notes too. And next volume, Pokemon Yellow. We are, have you noticed a theme already? Nintendo 64 doing good, making money, but in comparison, Pokemon was what was really the cash cow for Nintendo at the time. And there's Pokemon Yellow, the special Pikachu edition. And that was volume 125. We're near towards the end. It's October 1999. And the centerfold is a Game Boy game, Catwoman Game Boy game from Kemco. On the back of the centerfold here is StarCraft 64 strategies. There you go. Near towards the end of the magazine again. I love this. They got the fake Pikachu there. And load of confiscated Pokemon goods. As you can see, they're counterfeit Pikachu. Fakes just don't measure up. And believe me, they you know, I don't know, man. Pikachu in 2000, that was a big thing. Whenever something's hot, like at the time, I guess there was counterfeit Beanie Babies, and then back in the day, probably not very good ones. They get better over time, counterfeits do. I mean, they just do. There's a lot of counterfeit toys and stuff out there. It's almost like, ugh, what do I even do? And they're even counterfeiting the games themselves from the past. They're doing all kinds of stuff to anything that's of value gets counterfeited, and mainly in China or in places like Brazil and Russia where these products never officially get released because of tax problems or some kind of political issues. And so they just make their own, I remember, when I was a kid, I would make little Voltron toys because I couldn't afford to have the Voltron toys, so I made my own little. That's a whole other story. But people do that kind of stuff, and Nintendo encourages fan art, but not in the sense of people making money off of their stuff. I mean, there's people all over eBay and Etsy and stuff selling Pokemon stuff, but as long as they present it as fan art and not something to exploit people and exploit Nintendo, of course, either. Then it's fine. But if it's something that it's making millions of dollars and it's obviously counterfeit and trying to pretend to be official products when it's not, that's when Nintendo gets in there. And I think that's what this whole thing is about. President of the United States. Anyways, I'm just making that up there. Episode 9 of the comic based on the anime. And on the back there is the Pokemon first movie, and as you can see, it's still attached. I took a picture of that on purpose because I did detach it so that I can show you guys. This is a folded in poster, Kids WB, Warner Brothers did this. Well, in America anyway. Mewtwo Strikes Back, the Pokemon the first movie, and they're also showing Pikachu's Vacation, which is the prelude to the second generation coming, because there's Togepi right there. So next volume, it doesn't have it on here, but this is November of 1999, and it is Donkey Kong 64, which, you know, they had Mario, then they had Zelda, then they, you know, because of the success of Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo, they really wanted to push Donkey Kong 64. Rare games were still hot, and on Nintendo 64. And this is the cover. There's cutouts you can see for the eye holes because it is a fold. You can see the fold right there. Doesn't line up very well. It's a fold open cover. And when you fold it open, there's DK and Diddy and you know, some new characters for the Donkey Kong Country universe that were in Donkey Kong 64. So that's what it folds out to open up. It's a clean pre-rendered art.
Hello, I'm inserting this into the video. I did not have this at the original time of recording this, but this is the newsstand edition of volume 126. So the cover for this is different than the subscriber one, which had the fold open cover with all the different characters from Donkey Kong 64 on it. This one just has DK on it. And yeah, so thanks to the anonymous person who posted on my blog to inform me that I was missing this. And as soon as I was like, oh, I knew this, and I thought that the covers were so similar that the other one just didn't have the hole punch, or the eye holes punched through. That's what I thought that the newsstand one looked like. It was just like a normal cover without this fold open, but actually the cover is very different from the subscriber version. So I'm inserting this picture into the video to show you that.
So there was also a Donkey Kong Country cartoon show. I think this is a little bit before that time, but that's something to note too. Kobe Bryant, it's funny, Nintendo always, they try to, like with Mike Tyson and, you know, other people later on, Ken Griffey, they try to have like a sports guy, a sports mascot. And then this, you know, didn't go as far, but there's Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. The game did go up in price, Nintendo 64 Sports here, when the helicopter crash, unfortunately. But there's that, the centerfold, and the... Did they ever make Asteroid 64? That's a big question. Then the... Let me see here. Force Gemini. This is some tips and some maps here, 3D maps. As we got into the world of 3D gaming, because of the Nintendo 64 mainly, you know, the maps, they had to get more creative with how they were going to do them. They had to have the game a long time ahead of time. There was a bunch of companies, not just Nintendo and Nintendo Power Magazine, that were releasing strategy guides and stuff for this stuff. And, so, you know, they had to take pictures of the actual game, or they actually had to go to developers' notes, or they had to develop their own system to show those maps off. And here we go, the first mention of gold and silver. Pokemon in space. There you go. There's Pokemon first movie. This is a preview right here, which is included in the middle, you know, glued in attached comic. So there's the comic, and as you can see, that's the back end of the preview for Gee whiz, I'm trying to turn this over here for the preview for the Pikachu's Vacation and Mewtwo Strikes Back movie in theaters. But here you go. Here's episode 10, Bulbasaur and the Hidden Village. I don't know if they had one for Squirtle Squad. I should double check that. It's one of my favorite things, Pokemon related. This is the Nintendo Power Supplies catalog that came fall winter of 1999, which would have been around November of 1999 and around volume 126. But yeah, now we're on to the last volume of the year, which is volume 127, December 1999. You got Sako McFoley as Mankind. He is the only one that I know of, the only wrestler. Every time they put somebody else's hand, like for Hulk Hogan or for other wrestlers and stuff, holding the controller, but he's actually holding the controller. Mick Foley's awesome. Actually, two controllers. But there's that Wrestlemania 2000 WWF, when it was still WWF. On the cover, and the centerfold here. I love Winback, by the way. That's a great Konami game. Or no, wait a minute, it wasn't Konami. Sorry, that was Koei on Nintendo 64. Such a great game. They should have continued doing something. They made a Winback 2, but then it was like 2-player, and then it was not good. Whatever. Anyways, here's Toy Story 2 as the centerfold. On the back of the centerfold, we've got Donkey Kong 64 maps and tips. And this, I believe, is the end. This is episode 11, Charmander the Stray Pokemon. This is how Ash obtained this in anime comic form. There you go. Win a Mew. This is when they started doing codes where you enter a code or whatever and get, and they went elaborate with this stuff, and they still do it to this day. They have downloadable things. They have places where you can go to conventions or to special events or to certain stores, or you get codes through mail and all kinds of offers to get certain Pokemon, shiny Pokemon, in the actual games or whatever. Or like, this is the only way to get this Pokemon is to do, all these specific things. They use Nintendo Power Magazine for that too. So now you'll see the binding. Now, of course, you'll see the arm is super long, but that's because right here is where the 4 repeat, because it's the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer alternate covers. But yeah, this is Donkey Kong 64, about to throw a barrel. Green grass, where it begins. And then that was one of those things where like, oh, what's going to be the next game that's going to be revealed or whatever. You got, oh, this grass, what is this? Oh, whose hand is that? Is this Pokemon? What is this? And when it ends up being Donkey Kong. A lot of people thought that the top 3 franchises for Nintendo were around that time, before all of the other smaller franchises got bigger and all that other stuff, was Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, right? Well, here's Donkey Kong. No Metroid on 64. But yeah, this is the binding for the Nintendo Power Magazine, as I got them together on my shelf. And you see the previous one was Link from Ocarina of Time, and then you got Lugia from Pokemon Silver. So thanks for watching, guys, and next month, or next video I should say, I don't know if it'll be next month or sooner. It won't be later, but soon. I'm resituating how I do my videos and how I do my blogger and stuff. That's side news. But I'll catch you next time with the next year, which is the year 2000. But of Nintendo Power Magazine for the checklist here. So thanks for watching, and happy hunting out there. Good luck collecting, and I hope these videos help you out and are informative. Thank you.